Hey guys, today we talk about how to lift an idea to an actual product. And my guest was involved in building an app in which researchers are trying to figure out a better way to treat kids with anxiety. Today's guest, Erwin de Gier.
Beyond Coding. Welcome to Beyond Coding, a dive into the world of successful people in IT. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders. Here's your host, Patrick Akil.
Erwin, welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going?
It's going very well.
Awesome. So I brought you here to talk about how to lift an idea to a product, right? A lot of people have a lot of ideas, but to productize it and put it out in the market, even to consumers or to users, that's a skill. And you have a great example of how you did that in an app that you've created. But let's start with the idea. What was the idea and how did it get to you?
Yeah, that's true. So it's really something that I experienced during the development of this application. And I think in this instance it worked well. I don't think it always works well if you have an idea to get it actually as a successful product or in at least a workable product. This idea comes from a researcher, Dr. Klein from Leiden University, and our company Trifork has relations with them, and they came to us because they had a grant to develop basically a digital instrument for treating anxiety in children.
Yeah.
And anxiety in children is something that it happens kind of a lot, and it's also something that can limit you later on in life. So for instance, if you are like scared of dogs, you don't do anything with it, it's something that later on you will notice that it can give you problems, and it's really unfortunate because it's very easy to treat. So,
really?
And we do have to mention that it's about specific anxiety, so a fear of spiders, fear of dogs, fear of flying, and not per se like a social anxiety or a generic anxiety. Those are harder to treat.
Yeah.
But really something specific where you are afraid of, and anxiety is actually irrational because, of course, some dogs are dangerous, but in general, you shouldn't be super scared of dogs. Right?
Exactly.
And basically, there's a program in the United States which is called one session treatment.
Okay.
And it's a treatment where you have one session with a therapist, and they help you set up with this treatment, and then you go practice by yourself. So you go practice basically exposure for instance for dogs. And it's really important that you do this practicing by yourself, and it helps you. And if you compare that, for instance, to the Netherlands, you can also do a treatment, but you have to go visit the therapist lots of times. So it takes a lot of time, but it costs money. Insurance, I have to pay this. So they want to bring over this one session treatment basically to Europe, to the Netherlands and Germany. We do it together with Germany.
Yeah.
But they got the idea that they can support this for instance, with an app. So with a digital instrument, and of course everybody has a phone or an iPad, so we can build an app to do this. And that's what they got the grant for. So they got money from, you have these organizations that give money out to researchers.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to use to build the app. So they come to us with this idea, and basically the idea was just this: we want to build an app that can help anxiety treatment, which is like really, really rough. And for us as the developers, you don't know what to work with.
Exactly.
Usually when you start a project, there's more information that you know roughly what people want or what you see on your phone, and this was basically, okay, we want to build an app, and that's it.
That's the start of the start,
start of the start. And of course, different universities are involved, so Leiden and also Bochum in Germany, and when they were talking together, they also had problems visualizing what it was they were talking about. So they want to build an app, but what does the app do? And the really rough idea was actually quite funny. It's basically an alarm clock with a chat app. Because what you want to do with the application is you want to help children practice. So, for instance, you could say, okay, then you want to give a reminder that they should practice every day or multiple times a week. And at the same time, there's already an existing treatment with a therapist. So you think, okay, we need a link with that therapist. So you need to be able to chat with the therapist. So maybe you can ask a question or they can give you instructions.
Yeah.
So that was really the rough idea where we went from. And
Yeah.
if you look at the end result, it's nothing. Like it's completely different.
Yeah.
So basically what we start out is we said, okay, we need to have something, and it doesn't matter what it is, but we need to look at something, and people need to be able to say, okay, this doesn't work, or I like this, maybe we can explore this. So we just made very rough mock-ups, which we already gave to the target group, so to children, and also to other researchers, and also to therapists.
Okay.
And that already helped a lot, because then you had something to talk about. So there was indeed mock-ups of a chat screen, mock-ups of a notification screen.
That's before building anything, right?
Before building anything. This was just, I don't know, PDF on paper, or we had digital as well. But that was just it. And we did this actually with the development team. So our company thought this is a good idea. We want to help building this. There was not a lot of money available for the development. They got the grant, but well, research is also expensive, and you have to do the whole research project. So we did the app with 2 students, which was for us really nice, because we usually hire students to do their internship, and then we want them to either join in an existing project or build something.
Yeah.
But it's always hard to think, okay, what should they build? It should be something usable, but should also be not a lot of risk, because sometimes they don't succeed. So for us, it was a very good opportunity. We could say, okay, we can provide resources, we can give you the students, but there's of course a risk that it needs to be finished after the students are done.
Yeah.
And we had these 2 software engineers, students, really nice guys, and me. And that was literally the first thing they did. They made those mock-ups and went with them to all the people involved. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, then we got the feedback. So I think that was the first thing is, if you don't know how to start, doesn't matter. Make something.
Yeah.
It's complete crap if you throw it away. Well, at least you have a reference, right?
I love that, because it's don't wait until you know how to start, right? Just start and get feedback on that, and then you'll know which direction to go.
Yeah, I always have problems if I start with a blank screen.
Yeah.
Like I have to make a presentation, and then you open it, and okay, now it's an empty paper. Or what are we writing down?
Exactly.
So,
but then when you start, you can direct and be like, no, this doesn't work, or I think this might work, and just keep testing your assumptions.
Yeah. It does mean that you should be able to throw stuff away, which is also, if you invest time, especially if you invest, if you build something technical, it takes a lot of effort. You should be able to throw it away. That's hard for.
I guess so.
That was hard.
Yeah, but you guys threw away then that initial idea with the alarm clock and the chat.
Yeah. So basically, I can briefly explain what it does now, and we'll see the contrast. Basically, it's still an application on your phone, and you log in, and basically it's a list of exercises, and the exercises are all personal. So something that you think of for yourself with your therapist, and then you put them in the application.
Yeah.
And then the app helps you to do these exercises. So you can choose the level of the exercise. So for instance, if you have to pet a dog, you can pet one dog, or pet it for 5 minutes, pet it for 10 minutes, pet it for 15 minutes. There's levels in which you can do the task, basically.
Yeah.
And you can complete the exercise successfully or unsuccessfully. There's a little bit of a questionnaire, and you get rewards for the exercises, and the rewards can then be spent in a store. And basically, you can buy real-world products.
Okay.
So apparently, one of the things we had to learn this as well, because we are software engineers, and this is anxiety treatment, which is not my field. So we really had to learn how that works from the researchers.
Yeah.
But there's literature that says if you want to get rid of your fears, you have to do it. You have to approach it in a personal way. So basically, we can both be afraid of dogs, but in a completely different way.
Okay.
It's not that if you are afraid of dogs and you walk a dog every day, then after a month you're done. It depends completely on the person.
Yeah.
But also in the level of exposure you want to do. Some people will immediately be able to walk a dog, and some people even need to look at pictures of dogs for a week before they are able to walk a dog. So that's why the exercises are personal, but also the rewards are personal.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're real world rewards, because we really want to give them something that they feel they are rewarded. So if you give like a digital picture of a sticker, it's not really valuable.
Exactly.
It also doesn't stay valuable.
Yeah.
So it can be really simple things. It can be a book. If they would like a certain book, they can say, okay, if I walk the dog for a week, and then I can buy a book. And
Nice.
the parents then have to buy the book, of course. So
Yeah.
you need the parents to be involved.
Yeah.
But that worked because they own the process. They can think of, okay, what do you think is valuable for me if I complete something?
Yeah.
So they learn that if you do something that's hard, that you can reward yourself, but you can also choose how you to reward yourself.
Yeah.
But for me, that was really good insight because it works. I think that works for other things as well.
Yeah.
If I have something that I want to do or I have to do and it's hard for me, but if I reward myself with it, it becomes easier.
Yeah, it's that incentive.
Yeah.
And that didn't even exist in the initial idea.
No,
which was just,
it was not there.
yeah.
And the exercises were not there, and the store was also not there. And also one aspect is they take videos and pictures as kind of a diary. So there's a diary function that was also completely not there.
Yeah.
Because it also helps if you watch back the experience, if it was a positive experience.
Yeah.
So there's multiple ways that you can conquer fear, and one of the things is basically habituation. So if you fear of giving presentations
Yeah.
on a stage, but if you do it really often and you watch back and you see that you did well,
Okay.
the fear goes away.
Yeah.
So that watching back a video of you walking a dog helps with your fear. It
Yeah.
helps better than just walking the dog. So that's also a component that came up
Yeah.
during the whole process, basically. So that's for me, the initial idea and the end result.
It's
don't
night
look
and day
alike.
completely.
Yeah.
But how do you get, because you reference some part from literature, right, in getting personal rewards or gradually going through all the difficulties in either petting a dog for a short duration or a longer one, but you didn't start out with that knowledge. Did you go to, for example, the more literature part of your stakeholders instead of the kid side and figure it out that way? Or how did you get that knowledge?
Yeah, that was really a combination of all these things, because at one side we are building an application for kids, so we have to make sure that we build something they like.
Yeah.
But in the other end, the goal, the initial idea is that there's a theory that must be validated by using the app.
Yeah.
Because they are now going to use the app in an experiment, and there will be a comparison with two groups, and then they will actually know whether the app works or not. So normally you build something for an end user and that's it, right? The end user will use the app, and now you build something for science, and they are going to do an experience, but they're still users. So that was more complicated. So that's true. We had the children involved, but we also had the researchers involved from Leiden University, from Bogen University, and the original guy who thought of the one-session treatment in the US, American professor.
Yeah.
And they all got the application on their device. So they were able to go through the application or the version we had at that moment, and they were also be able to give the feedback and guide us to what we have to do and what we can do.
Yeah.
Because as a developer you sometimes think, oh, for a user it would be easier to not have two similar questions.
Yeah.
For instance, that was one of the things that came up. There was one question, they both asked about the anxiety level you experienced, but one asked during and one asked after. And these questions were just after each other. So I said, if you get those questions and they're almost the same, how can you make a distinction between them? But the researchers told us we have to put that in there because we want to validate the difference between the anxiety during the exercise and the anxiety after the exercise, because apparently there's a theory that there is some kind of decline, and like the speed of decline has to go up. The more you practice, the sooner, faster it has to go down.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it really was important to, if you think about something or if a child comes up with an idea, to take that idea and go to the researchers and say, okay, we have this idea. Does it work, or is it valid according to the thing you want to experience or the thing you want to research or the existing literature?
Yeah.
So that was a balancing act.
Yeah.
And the third thing was we also went into the literature ourselves, but more in our field. So, for instance, important aspect of the application is that we need to motivate the children to do the exercises, but also to keep using the app. Because if they get bored of
what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah.
Doesn't work. So There's an interesting website called Psychology of Games, and they do like articles where they basically review a bunch of scientific literature, and they make it more accessible because I'm a software developer and I have a university degree, but I don't like reading papers. For me, it's really abstract and really specific. So I really like to read these overviews where people read a couple of papers and they explain what happened. And on Psychology of Games, there's a website and or a page, and basically they explain why badges and achievements work.
Yeah.
And that's was really interesting for me because it's something that you see a lot. I play video games. It's in there. I think the last 10 years it's become a really standard.
To buy like a skin or equipment.
Yeah, buy a skin and get some achievements and show it on your profile.
Yeah.
And, I got platinum in this game. these kind of things.
Yeah.
But also in learning apps like Duolingo, they also have really a big achievement scheme going on. And depending on what kind of achievements you unlock, you can do other exercises and other tasks. And that website or that article that I referenced really explains how it works, and it works on different levels, which I didn't expect. I thought it was more like really superficial, like you get an achievement and you're happy that you got it and you show it to someone and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But there's also details like, for instance, we want the children to do exercises, but if you tell a child do exercises, how many are they going to do? 1 or 2 or 3? And for us, the goal was that they finish the game. So it's basically, I think, like something like 20 exercises as a minimum.
Yeah.
So if you make an achievement that says do 20 exercises, the chances that they are going to do those 20 exercises become much higher than if you make an achievement that says do exercises.
Exactly.
And it's so simple if you read it like this.
Oh, yeah.
But beforehand we had no idea how are we going to use these mechanisms.
Yeah.
So that really helped us, and I really learned from this. Basically this project.
I can imagine. Like, you really sound like you own the domain now. Like the way you explain the reward system, the point system, even the literature in kind of conquering those fears that the kids need to go through, both personalized, right? Because standardized for some reason doesn't work. Not every fear is the same. You really own that domain. And in other organizations, there's a lot more stakeholders and layers involved for the developers to interact with their end users in that way. It's completely different, and it sounds like you kind of found the sweet spot in dealing with your stakeholders, getting that information, and implementing the app in such a way that you can get that fast feedback.
It's something that when I start a project, and of course every time you start a project you want to make it better than the last one.
Yeah.
You always want to do it in a way that you're really attached to the user and preferably get the feedback from the actual user.
Yeah.
But somehow in practice, I think like 15 years of development experience.
Yeah.
I only experienced it a couple of times. In practice, it seems to be harder to. There's always a layer in between, or there's like the client who doesn't want you to talk to the user, or it's secret. They build something and they want to keep it a secret for the competitor.
Yeah.
And in this specific instance, we basically did it. Not for complete. We did it for free. We can say that we did it for free, but that also meant we could say, okay, if we do it like this, we want to try stuff out.
Yeah, have that ownership.
Yeah, have the ownership of the process. Do it in a way that we think that's going to be helpful.
Yeah,
and the people that wanted us to build the app were completely fine with that. They really wanted, to get the app in the hands of the children.
Yeah.
And they actually became part of the development team, which is also funny to see. If you're able to build a quick feedback cycle, and of course with an app, it's probably easier than with other systems. Some systems are just too complex to do that.
Yeah.
But if you build an app, you can really just make something, use frameworks that you can build something quickly, and also get it in like a test app store or a test flight, for instance, for Apple.
Yeah.
You can just give them the phone, and they get the latest version of the app, and
they have it.
They can use it, and we emulated the environment in which they were using it, but of course we didn't use children with actual fear, so they did it for household chores, which was kind of funny. So they put in, they have to do the dishes, for instance, as a task, and then they got a reward, and then I think they went to the movie theater, and
Nice.
we gave them some books as well, those kind of things. So the children they really liked it. They actually told us, I wish I had a fear for something so we could use it in an actual way, which is, it's kind of funny. But but because we did like 2 weeks sprints, I think, and not every 2 weeks we release the version, but quite frequently, and they automatically get this version and they use it, and then we did interviews with them. So we actually just put the phone on the table or the iPad on the table and went through it with them, and they really could say it like, okay, for instance, in the beginning they said, these notifications don't make any sense to me.
Okay.
I get a couple of notifications a day, but I click on them, I just see a list of notifications. It's very much noise for us. So we completely abandoned that initial notification ID based on that, and we thought, okay, we have to make it structured. The app should basically give the structure which the child has in its head. It should not be like a bunch of notifications. It should really be like exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, medal bronze, medal gold. All very
should be a road.
Yeah, should be. Yeah, you should take them through the basically through the therapy, so they know where to begin and they know where it ends.
Yeah.
So that was something that we learned from working with them, but they also sometimes thought of things, and we didn't know for sure if that was allowed by the literature or by the researchers, or that it was with the program. But it was really hard to get feedback if you are part of a process. So the initial idea is you work with the children and they help you develop the app, but it also means that they own the features. Basically, they say, okay, I want this page to be there. And if you then don't do it and they get the next version, hey, I told you to put that screen on another page. What happened? So that meant we had another group of children.
Okay.
Where we did pilots with. So these were not, they didn't get frequent updates. We run basically the same as we would use it in a treatment, but then shorter, like for a week, for instance. Yeah. And they were able to use an app that they didn't know.
Yeah, just a fresh perspective.
We got a fresh perspective. Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah. So completely different kind of feedback, and you can actually, then validate if the choice or original choice was okay. So that helped a lot. But it's something that we didn't realize in the beginning. In the beginning, we just thought, okay, we need to involve these users. But then when you involve them, and what? How do you know that what you produce is still valid?
I get that. You've mentioned sometimes you didn't know that in the beginning, but you did make these steps and take these steps to integrate and to kind of shift either your process or the product that you were building. Did you make those decisions as a group, or did someone just be like, well, I think we need this and try things out and see as they go?
I think that was, we were really flat as a group. Which is funny because I work with 2 students and of course I have a lot of experience and they just start out. And then you have these researchers which are basically experts on their domain. So I'm not the person that's going to tell you something about anxiety. I'm a software engineer.
Exactly.
But still, if you're working together closely, I think, and you deal with this product together, it becomes easier to discuss things, even if you have different experience levels or different backgrounds. So definitely, when a student said, it would be nice if we can, validate it with another group of people, or maybe we should make some more mock-ups. That was definitely appreciated, and that happened a lot. And that actually is something that I also took to my current project.
Okay.
I'm not building an app right now, but I do think we have a relation where we can equally discuss. Depending if you're a junior software engineer or you're product owner or you're CTO even. It's nice if you have that environment. If everybody just can speak their mind. And I like it when students or junior engineers join a project and they come with this fresh
set of eyes.
Because they come from university now or college. And it has changed in the time, and they completely have a different approach to life even. I don't want to say I'm old, but there's definitely a different perspective for people who start out on the working now depending if you compare it like 15 years ago.
Yeah. And there's not a right or a wrong perspective, right? It's just an opinion.
Yeah.
And at some point you say, well, we think this is the best one. We're going to test it, see if it works. If yes, great. Doesn't matter who it comes from, because it's still a group, right? And as a group, as a team, you go towards that goal. I love that you say hierarchy-wise, doesn't matter really who you are or what your level of expertise is, because we're doing this together, and it's kind of a team setting in that way. Maybe that also explains why in an organization where there is a bit more hierarchy and a lot more communication, a lot more people involved, it's harder to do that.
Yeah, for me it depends really on the project if it's possible at all and whether it will work.
Yeah.
So if you have done multiple projects, you always have these ups and downs, and sometimes it works very well to work in a hierarchical way. But
yeah,
if you experience it, that everybody is able to provide input, for me that it feels better.
Yeah, makes sense.
And also, a lot of times, because we work in a complex field, a lot of times we just don't know what to do. We have a problem, or you want to make something or build something, and there's different options. And sometimes people are more religiously, like take a programming language. Some people say you have to build it in this, and other people you have to build in that.
Yeah.
And in the end, it does not really matter.
No.
I don't know who I got it from, but it was in someone's presentation, a conference talk, and he said, if you have a problem, you discuss it, and you discuss pros and cons.
Yeah.
And then you can make a decision. But sometimes it keeps being a discussion, so you keep going in circles.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter which one you choose,
Okay.
because probably because there's so much discussion, both are valid or not.
Yeah.
So you can choose either one. You just have to be prepared to switch to the other one if it doesn't work. So you can just say, we don't know. We have a discussion. We don't know which one is good. We check A randomly.
Yeah.
But we evaluate it for maybe one sprint.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, we have to switch to the other one.
Yeah.
And that makes it far easier to make decisions.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just a matter of going in circles, and depending on who you talk to, there will be a good answer.
Yeah.
But it's not really, you don't really have the feeling that, okay, we have to do A. Sounds really easy, right? If you can just say, okay, let's pick one. Doesn't matter.
That's so relatable. In a lot of discussions, you might just be going on in circles. And because of that, you're stuck, right? Unless someone actually picks one of the two. And as you lay it out, when a discussion happens like that, probably both of them you could pick. Just check and make sure that what you pick is good for the cause that you need it. And otherwise pivot to the other one and test if that one works.
Yeah, I think you have to be aware of that one.
Yeah.
But it also means that there should be an environment of failure, right? Where failure is possible, at least.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also something that's hard, but it comes up more and more that people say you should be able to fail, because otherwise you cannot learn.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have a project and it takes a lot of money and you want to be there first, you cannot say we built something for a year and then notice we built the wrong thing. So I don't think you can say, okay, failure is always an option, but you can like maybe compact it, right? If you set the boundaries, if you can say, okay, we spent 2 weeks on it, and then if we notice it's the wrong thing, then it was only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So then I think it definitely works, but be aware that throw away again, like we said in the beginning, you should be able to throw away stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when you mentioned all the way in the beginning, when the researchers came to you with this idea, did you already have this kind of structured idea of how you wanted to approach this? Or did you also try things along the way and see what worked process-wise? For example, you mentioned having kids and kind of involved in the process of developing the app, or getting the app as soon as possible in their hands. Did you already have an idea of how you wanted to do that, or did you try things out?
So I cannot completely say that from the beginning I had this planned out.
Yeah, I get that.
Just too much credit. Actually, I was kind of a little bit worried in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I always find it hard if people don't know what I want. If I want to build stuff, but I want to know what I should build. And I'm also not really a person of like an entrepreneurship or something. So for me, it's also a bit hard to imagine what it should be. So in the beginning, I really struggled a lot with okay, we need an app, and it helps treating anxiety.
Yeah.
Basically. I really struggled with that. The good thing is that the principal investigator, so the person with the ID that got the grant, already had the ID to involve the children. So that came from them, which is really good. and they also basically had they have to write the project structure before they get a grant. So you have to kind of in detail already tell that the grant to the grant provider that you're going to use children to help you, and what ages and how big the groups are.
Yeah.
So that came from them. So that already helped. And going from there, it was like, okay, if we have the children that help us, what are we going to do? How are we going to involve them? So we thought, okay, we have to do a workshop. But what's a workshop? If you do a workshop with adults, you get sticky notes, right? And you have some kind of format where
you write something,
put it on
the wall,
put it on, people vote, and we take this one. We go that approach. But children don't really, or at least I think it's 7 till 12.
Okay,
and that's kind of a big age range because 7 is young.
Yeah,
but 12 is almost adult in some cases. So that was also something that we had to work with.
Yeah.
So then we thought, okay, we have to. There's only one option. We have to give them the thing that we are building, and then they can provide feedback. So it gradually came from that angle, and that we combined, of course, with the way we used to work is small iterations, and whether you're doing Scrum or something that look like it, some small iterations where you preferably have something finished after, for instance, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So not like half products, but really something that you can use.
Yeah.
And on paper, that always sounds like a good idea, and in practice again, if you have a big project and there's lots of features, and then it's always a little bit harder because you build something, but then but people have to log in, and you need a database, and we need a test environment.
Oh, yeah.
And all these things come together, and then 2 weeks becomes 3 months.
Yeah.
And with these children, we really were forced. Okay, we have to do something. Okay, let's start with mock-ups. It's the easiest. Just draw something and
as soon as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second step was, okay, let's get an app framework that we can use to build an app quickly without a backend.
Yeah.
Just have the app and show that. And it was also people talk about a multiple viable product, for instance, which is something that you can take really far. Once heard the phrase years ago, who said, if you want to build a web store, just have a list of products and your email address.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's a web shop.
Okay.
You don't need anything more. And of course, that's exaggeration, but you can still do it. We could still have a successful app if the only thing it did was give a daily reminder that said you now have to do exercise 1 and you now have to do exercise 2, and then the exercises would just be on paper.
Yeah.
So that was basically our fallback, right? So
nice.
And we thought if it doesn't work, the app development because I don't know, it's too complicated, or we work with students, we don't get it working. Okay, we just do this thing, daily reminders with the number, which exercise, and we just give it to them on paper. And that's actually what our client proposed, and that really gave us a sense of relief, because that means that whatever you do, the thing that you have to deliver is worth maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And that means if you have that fallback, you can then take more risks. You can then go on and go in a direction and say, okay, now we need to backtrack a bit.
Yeah.
So that gave us a big sense of relief if you have that fallback. And of course it sounds really stupid because it's just, actually the 99% of the app is on paper and the app does only a little bit of stuff, but the ID helped us.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's probably such a relief in the way that things that you're doing, and also in the decision making, right? Because I don't know if this is true, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there was probably a time frame in which you needed to deliver the app that was agreed upon with the people that gave the grant.
Yeah, that's true.
In which there was some kind of time pressure in delivering what needed to deliver.
Yeah, that's definitely true. There's from the grant perspective, there's a time frame, but also because you make agreements with other universities, and the people that do the therapy need to be trained. So there's actual therapists using this app, and they need to be trained with the app, and that's all part of the bigger project. Yeah. So definitely there was an end date. I think we did a year or something, roughly 9 months to a year, something. That was the time frame. Yeah. And that's also kind of lines up with an internship. Most internships are like 9 months.
That's nice.
Yeah. For the students, that was also.
That's an amazing project to work on as a student then as well.
Yeah, they liked it a lot. We used it as like in the job advertisement. Well, we're going to build this app, and it will be used by real children with real research, and that's what I really liked. And it's good to build something for a specific group. It's that gives more. How do you say? Makes it more concrete.
Yeah.
If you know that it has to be for a child that has a specific fear, and it's between this and this age.
It's kind of gives you a purpose to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is lacking if you're doing it for an end customer who you don't even speak to face in the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And the way you did it, to me, like as an engineer, it kind of sounds like the holy grail of how the process should be, right? Getting the product as fast as possible live in the hands of the user, even though it's not even finished, it's just an MVP, and getting that feedback, testing the assumptions, iterating, new version, and just go as you go. So I love hearing that.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, it was definitely something that that was very good to experience.
Yeah.
That you want to build it in this certain way, and that you involve the people. It was still for me. It was like the first time I really did it like this, and you also notice then that you have to cut corners a little bit on other things that you normally do. Like for instance, normally I would spend more time on quality assurance.
Yeah.
If you do like continuous deliveries, stuff like that you really have an automatic test set, and it's really hardened and secure and reliable.
Yeah.
And I think we spent a lot of effort building the thing that we wanted for the children.
Yeah.
But then in the end, we still had a lot of bugs left. Not like an extreme amount, but
Sure.
we still needed some work, like sit behind your computer and just fix those bugs. Which is it's good to learn. It's good to see that you can do stuff in a certain way, and it's not perfect. It's hard to get things perfect.
Exactly.
There's lots of aspects, and you want to make something that's reliable and secure, but you want to give it to the users soon.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act, and I think you learn from both kind of ways. So I learned from the projects I do where you make something super reliable but takes a bit more time, and you also learn from the projects where you get something to the user fast but you cut some corners, and then probably you have to do something in between for the next project.
Yeah.
So you're always learning from these things, and I can definitely not say this was the most perfect project, but in terms of user involvement, I would say this was a good experience.
Yeah, I love hearing that. There's always a scale in which you operate, right? Can either be cutting corners and getting it as fast as possible, and maybe this might have been the project in which that was necessary, giving the time frame, and it's still a proof of concept that they're going to test. So cutting corners in quality might then be pretty okay, because it's not going to be used maybe 5 years down the line. Might have a completely new version or a new iteration which doesn't involve the initial proof of concept.
Yeah,
that's completely fine.
Yeah, it's also that some things you just have to ask, because we were like, okay, if this is used by a lot of users, and then we need to make sure that the backend is able to handle it. And then we ask, okay, but how many children are going to participate, and how many are going to be in the app condition? And then turned out that was only a handful.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, but then you don't have to make a super scalable backend, and even if something goes wrong, you can manually fix it. Because if just a handful of users, it's completely different than if you have thousands transactions per minute. When something fails in 1,000 transactions per minute, you still you end up with lots of data corruption. But if something fails with only 5 users,
that's a great point. Just make sure in what scope they're gonna.
So you have to check this. How should you basically scale the app for that? And sometimes if not needed at all, you can make it cut your corner there where it's less pain. Basically.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. So now you've developed this idea into a product, and they're now going to test it, kind of a A/B test with.
Yeah. So that's now the plan there. So they're now recruiting actual children with an anxiety.
Yeah.
And then they're going to make 2 groups, and basically one with the app and one without the app.
Yeah.
And then run the project.
Awesome.
Do the whole thing. I think it will take around 5 weeks or so
to
complete the whole thing. A little bit depending how much you do, of course.
Yeah.
And then they have to analyze and write everything down, and it will take, of course, a while because research is it's kind of slow. Yeah, it's not super slow.
Works with a different time frame.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it has to be processed.
Yeah.
You have to submit it, and then you can publish it. Hopefully, if it's good, you can publish it. And that's actually funny, because all the people involved say, okay, where can we download it? Especially therapists. This is a good instrument. I want to have it. And it is in the App Store, but you cannot really use it because it has to be with a therapist. So
Yeah.
you can download it, but the name is Kiba. You can find it, but it's not really useful.
Yeah.
But of course, the idea is, the eventual goal is to build something that can be used by people, but it has to be validated first. But
Exactly.
so the world around the app is really excited to use it, but
Yeah.
we need a little bit of time to validate.
Love that.
Which is good, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the only way, right? Even in startups, you build an MVP and you validate your product before you throw some more money at it and do the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's true.
In personalizing both the rewards and the things that kids do, that's still the initial conversation you have, right, with the therapist.
Yeah, that's part of the first session.
Yeah,
they basically sit down together and have to write down the exercise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That also influenced how many exercises, because in the beginning we had lots of exercises, but thinking of all these exercises, writing them out down, it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of the things that was validated during the feedback sessions. If they have to think of all the exercises, how can we make sure we have enough content in a short amount of time? That's where we came up with that idea. Is if you think of a task, you can basically do it in 3 levels, and then you only have to think of the task once, but you already have 3 exercises. So you triple the exercises basically for free, which is I really like that those things, those details that you cannot imagine how it would work or how it should work.
Yeah.
But if you do it,
that's
and
the
then
only
an
way.
expert is there as well, and then they can say, okay, but if we say, okay, we do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we have 3 exercises, and that works as well.
Yeah. I was wondering, the kind of a final question I have is, so you've laid out the things you've learned on a process level, also on a practicality level, right? It went in that conversation in robustness versus speed of delivery, and a bit of stakeholder management in kind of testing assumptions and validating and dealing with kids and researchers at the same time. What do you think is the most important takeaway you've had in that last year of the app development? Or is it hard to choose? Because I can imagine that as well.
That's a really hard question. But I definitely think that working with a tangible thing helped us the most. So it's something that I try to take in the rest of my work, that if you have a discussion about something, it really helps if you can look at the thing you're discussing.
Yeah, just hold it, touch it, use it.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Is it the process, or is it the mock-up, or is it an app, or is it the website? There's always a possibility to make something, get something together, and then and it can even be a flow. Stickies on a wall is still a thing that you can point at. Yeah,
or the mock-ups you started initially with.
Yeah, and for more process things is things we did not in this project, in other projects, where we basically had a similar problem. We don't know what people want, and different people want different things. So, what happens a lot is that there is money and there's a problem, and people think, oh, we have to spend this money on that problem, and that's the only thing you have. Something that's called event storming by Alberto Brandolini is basically people just stick things that happen in the world on the wall, and everything is allowed. That's really what I like. Everyone can put things there. You don't have to be technical, you don't have to be CEO, everyone can contribute. And then once these things are on the wall, people can just point at it and say, okay, we don't do it like that, or we should do it like that, or I would like different. And because you see them hanging on the wall, it gives you something to look at. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? As long as you have a point of reference that you can go from.
I love that answer. Then we're not just talking about concepts, but then you can actually see what's happening instead of it just being in your head. You can point at it and be like, well, this is actually not the way, but this is the right way.
I've done this workshop at clients, and it happened that after 2 hours, we said, okay, we are not going to do this project. We are completely clear about how it should work, and it doesn't make any sense to spend any money on it. And they were happy. So it's only 2 hours instead of, I don't know, a year or 2 years of basically help.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it, man. Erwin, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
I love your story. I love it a lot. So let's round it off there then. Cool. Erwin de Gier, everyone.
Beyond Coding. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders.